What happens when two comedy legends and longtime friends find themselves on opposite sides of a conversation that spirals completely out of control? It only took 25 seconds for laughter to turn into one of the most intense confrontations The View has ever broadcast. Before we get into this jaw-dropping moment, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We bring you daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals, the confrontations they try to hide, and the explosive moments that reveal what really happens when celebrities stop playing nice. Now let's break down what went down last night on The View. The View's studio was filled with anticipation as Eddie Murphy made his entrance. The audience erupted in applause for the comedy icon who's been making people laugh for over 4 decades. Whoopi Goldberg stood up to greet him with a huge smile, and the two shared a warm hug that reminded everyone of their long history together in Hollywood. They'd known each other since the 80s, both rising through the comedy world around the same time, and had always shown mutual respect and admiration over the years. The other co-hosts, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Alyssa Farah Griffin, and Sunny Hostin, all welcomed Eddie enthusiastically. The energy was light and fun as they started talking about his incredible comeback, his recent projects, and how he'd managed to stay relevant across multiple generations of comedy. Eddie was relaxed, funny, and generous with his stories, making the whole panel laugh with tales from his Saturday Night Live days and behind-the-scenes moments from classic films like Beverly Hills Cop and Coming to America. Eddie talked about doing voices for animated films, about his kids following in his footsteps in entertainment, and about how grateful he was for the career he'd had. The conversation was flowing beautifully, with everyone contributing and the audience clearly enjoying every minute. He even did a few impressions that had the whole studio in stitches, reminding everyone why he'd been considered one of the greatest comedians of all time. "You know what I love about your career?" Joy Behar said, still laughing from one of his impressions. "You've never been afraid to take risks. You've done serious roles, comedy roles, family films, everything. You've never boxed yourself in." "That's the key," Eddie agreed, nodding. "You can't let people tell you what you should be. You have to keep evolving, keep trying new things, otherwise you get stale." "You've had such an amazing career," Whoopi said warmly, looking at her old friend. "From stand-up to SNL to movies to voice acting, you've done it all. And you took a break for a while, right? You kind of stepped back from Hollywood for a few years." "Yeah, I did," Eddie nodded, still smiling. "I wanted to focus on my family, watch my kids grow up. I'd been working nonstop for so long. I needed that time." "That's beautiful," Sarah Haynes chimed in. "Putting family first. That takes courage in this industry." "It does," Eddie agreed, "because this industry doesn't like when you step away. They forget about you real quick. But I was okay with that. My priorities were clear." Whoopi leaned forward with that look she gets when she's about to dig deeper. "But Eddie, let me ask you something. During those years you were away, comedy changed a lot. The rules changed. What people find acceptable changed. Do you ever think about how different things are now from when we started?" There was something in her tone that made Eddie's smile falter slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, comedy is different now," Whoopi continued. "People are more sensitive, more aware. The stuff we used to do, the jokes we used to tell, a lot of that wouldn't fly today. You know what I'm saying?" Eddie shifted in his seat. "Sure, times change. I get that." "Right, but some of your old material," Whoopi pressed, "like your stand-up from the 80s, some of that was pretty rough, pretty edgy, especially the stuff about gay people. That wouldn't work today, would it?" The studio got noticeably quieter. The other co-hosts exchanged glances. This wasn't the fun, nostalgic conversation they'd been having moments ago. "Whoopi, I addressed that years ago," Eddie said, his voice careful. "I apologized for those jokes. I was young. I was ignorant. I grew as a person. I learned better, and I did better." "I know you did," Whoopi said, but she didn't stop. "I'm just saying it's interesting how comedy works, how we get forgiven for some things and not others, how some people can move past their old material and some people can't." "What are you trying to say?" Eddie asked, and now there was an edge in his voice. I'm not trying to say anything, Whoopi said. I'm just making an observation. Some comedians can evolve and everyone accepts it. Others get canceled. It's interesting who gets grace and who doesn't. Eddie leaned back in his chair, studying Whoopi's face. You think I didn't earn my grace? You think I didn't do the work to grow? I didn't say that, Whoopi replied, but her tone suggested otherwise. Then what are you saying? Eddie's voice was firmer now. Because it feels like you're implying something, Whoopi. It feels like you're suggesting I got some kind of special treatment or something. Well, didn't you? Whoopi asked, and the bluntness of the question hung in the air. Didn't you get to just step away, come back, and everyone welcomed you with open arms? While other comedians who said similar things got dragged through the mud? The audience was completely silent. Joy Behar looked uncomfortable. Sunny Hostin was staring at her notes. Who are you talking about? Eddie asked. What other comedians? You know who I'm talking about, Whoopi said. There have been plenty of comedians who've been called out for old material, who've been boycotted, who've lost deals, who've had to fight tooth and nail to get back in the public's good graces, but you just waltzed back in like nothing happened. Eddie's jaw tightened. Waltzed back in? Whoopi, I took accountability. I acknowledged I was wrong. I apologized sincerely. I changed. What more do you want? Should I have worn a scarlet letter? Should I have done a tour of shame? I'm not saying that, Whoopi said, but she pressed on. I'm saying there's a double standard. There's one standard for certain people and another standard for others, and I think we need to be honest about that. Honest? Eddie's voice rose. You want honesty? Here's honesty. I stepped away from my career at the peak of my fame to raise my children. I missed opportunities. I missed roles. I watched other people get parts that could have been mine. I made that sacrifice willingly. And when I came back, yes, people welcomed me, but not because I got special treatment, because I'd earned their trust back through my actions, not just my words. And which standard do you think I got? Eddie asked quietly, but there was steel in his voice. The easier one, Whoopi said bluntly. The studio erupted in gasps and murmurs. Eddie stood up from his chair, clearly trying to control his emotions. The easier one? Eddie repeated, his voice shaking with controlled anger. You think my journey has been easy? You think dealing with the guilt and shame of knowing I hurt people with my words was easy? You think facing my own homophobia and doing the internal work to change was easy? Eddie, sit down, Whoopi said, but there was no warmth in her voice. No, I won't sit down, Eddie said firmly, because you just disrespected me on national television. You just implied that my apology didn't mean anything, that my growth didn't mean anything, that somehow I got a pass that others didn't get. I'm just speaking truth, Whoopi said, crossing her arms. That's what we do on this show. We speak truth. Truth? Eddie laughed bitterly. This isn't truth, Whoopi. This is you airing some grievance you have with me under the guise of social commentary. This is you using this platform to take shots at me for reasons I don't even understand. I don't have a grievance with you, Whoopi protested. Then why are you doing this? Eddie demanded. Why did you invite me here just to ambush me about mistakes I made 40 years ago? Mistakes I've owned up to? Mistakes I've spent years making amends for? Because not everyone gets to make amends. Whoopi's voice was loud now. Not everyone gets the luxury of saying, I'm sorry, and having it be enough. Some people's careers end. Some people never recover. But you're Eddie Murphy. You get to do whatever you want. The truth was finally out. This wasn't about comedy or accountability. This was personal. This was about something deeper. Is that what this is about? Eddie said, his voice dangerously quiet. You're mad because you think I had it easier than you? You think my career was handed to me? You think I didn't work for every single thing I got? I think you've never had to fight the way some of us have fought, Whoopi said, standing up now too, her voice shaking. I think you've never had to deal with the same level of scrutiny, the same level of criticism, the same level of having to prove yourself over and over and over again just to be seen as half as good. Are you serious right now? Eddie's voice rose. Whoopi, I'm a black man in Hollywood. You don't think I've had to fight? You don't think I've faced scrutiny? You don't think I've had to prove myself? It's different for men, Whoopi shot back. You know it is. Black women in this industry have it harder than black men. We fight battles you don't even know about. I'm not denying that, Eddie said, his hands spread wide. I've always acknowledged that black women face unique challenges. I've always supported black women in this industry. But that doesn't mean my journey was easy. That doesn't mean I didn't struggle. That doesn't mean I don't deserve grace when I grow and change. You get more grace than we do, Whoopi insisted. That's just facts. That's not facts. That's your perception, Eddie countered. And even if it were true, why are you taking it out on me? I'm not the system. I'm not the one making those decisions. I'm just another artist trying to do good work and be a better person. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried to interject. Maybe we can all take a breath and... No, Eddie cut her off, his eyes never leaving Whoopi. We're not taking a breath. We're finishing this. Because Whoopi decided to start this conversation on air, in front of millions of people, so we're going to finish it on air. Fine, Whoopi said, her arms still crossed. Let's finish it. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you haven't had privileges that other comedians haven't had. Of course I've had privileges, Eddie said, his voice exasperated. I was successful young. I got opportunities. But I also worked my ass off. I also dealt with racism. I also faced rejection and criticism and people writing me off. And when I made mistakes, I owned them. I didn't make excuses. I didn't blame others. I looked in the mirror and I changed. But did you pay the price others paid? Whoopi pressed. What price do you want me to pay, Whoopi? Eddie's voice was raw now. What would be enough for you? Should I have lost everything? Should I have never been allowed to work again? What would satisfy you? I want honesty, Whoopi said. I want acknowledgement that the system treated you better than it treated others. And I want you to acknowledge that you're using this moment to take out your frustrations about the industry on me instead of having an honest conversation. Eddie fired back. You're making me the symbol of everything you think is wrong with Hollywood instead of seeing me as a person who's tried to grow and change. The tension was unbearable. The other co-hosts didn't know where to look. The audience was frozen. I am seeing you as a person, Whoopi said, but her voice was less certain now. A person who benefited from systems of privilege. We all benefit from systems of privilege in different ways, Eddie said, his voice tired now. You've benefited from being Whoopi Goldberg, from being an EGOT winner, from having this platform. That doesn't diminish your struggles, but it also doesn't mean you're the only one who's suffered. Don't compare our situations, Whoopi said sharply. I'm not comparing, Eddie said. I'm saying we can both be true. You can have faced unique challenges as a black woman, and I can have faced challenges as a black man, and we can both have made mistakes and both deserve grace when we grow. It's not a competition. But it feels like a competition when the world treats us so differently, Whoopi said, and for the first time her voice cracked with emotion. Then be mad at the world, Eddie said softly. Don't be mad at me for surviving it. There was a long silence. Whoopi looked at Eddie, and something passed between them. Years of friendship, years of shared experience, years of understanding what it meant to be black and successful in an industry that often didn't want them there. But the damage was done. You know what, Whoopi? Eddie said, reaching for his microphone. I came here today as your friend. I came here to have fun, to reminisce, to celebrate what we've both accomplished. But instead, you used this as an opportunity to air grievances that you clearly should have talked to me about privately. You used your platform to make me defend myself for crimes I've already paid for growth I've already demonstrated. Eddie, I didn't mean... Whoopi started, but Eddie held up his hand. Yes, you did, Eddie said firmly. You meant every word. You've been holding on to this for a while, haven't you? Watching me come back, watching people celebrate my return, and it bothered you. It bothered you because in your mind, I didn't deserve it. I didn't suffer enough. I didn't pay a high enough price. That's not entirely fair, Whoopi said weakly. Isn't it? Eddie asked. Then explain to me what this was. Explain to me why you brought up 40-year-old material that I've apologized for multiple times. Explain to me why you questioned whether I earned my redemption. Explain to me why you compared my journey to others as if there's a correct amount of suffering I should have gone through. Whoopi opened her mouth and then closed it. She had no answer. Eddie unclipped his microphone and set it down on his chair. I thought we were friends, Whoopi. I thought we understood each other. But clearly you've been harboring resentment that I didn't even know about. And that's sad. That's really sad. Where are you going? Whoopi asked as Eddie started to walk off the stage. I'm leaving, Eddie said simply, because I refuse to sit here and be your punching bag. I refuse to let you use me to make whatever point you think you're making about the industry, and I refuse to continue a friendship with someone who clearly doesn't respect my journey. You're overreacting, Whoopi called after him, but there was desperation in her voice now. Eddie stopped and turned back one last time. Am I? You just spent the last 10 minutes telling me I didn't deserve grace, that I had it too easy, that somehow my apology and my growth weren't enough. And now I'm overreacting for being hurt by that? I was trying to have a conversation about systemic issues, Whoopi said. No, you were trying to cut me down, Eddie said, his voice cutting through the studio. And you did it publicly because you wanted everyone to see it. You wanted everyone to know that Eddie Murphy, in your opinion, didn't earn his comeback. Well, congratulations, Whoopi. You said it, but you lost a friend in the process. He turned and walked toward the exit, his back straight, his head held high despite the emotional devastation that was clearly written on his face. Eddie, Whoopi called out, and now there were tears in her voice. Eddie, come back. Let's talk about this. But Eddie didn't stop. He didn't turn around. He just kept walking, past the cameras, past the crew members who stood frozen in shock, past the producers who were probably panicking about how to salvage this disaster. The studio fell into complete silence except for the sound of Eddie's footsteps echoing through the space. Whoopi stood at the table, her hands gripping the edge, watching her friend walk away. The other co-hosts sat motionless, clearly unsure if they should say something or let the moment speak for itself. As Eddie reached the exit, he paused for just a moment, his hand on the door. He didn't look back, but his voice carried across the studio one last time. I hope whatever you were trying to prove was worth it, Whoopi. I really do. And then he was gone, leaving behind a shattered friendship, a stunned audience, and a host who was just beginning to realize the magnitude of what she'd done. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the uncomfortable aftermath, the moment when a conversation about